Hi, I'm Tristan,
And I'm Ben.
and this is RWBY Ramblings episode 11, where we're going to talk about Chapter 1 of Volume 5 of RWBY.
Woo! We
Yeah,
finally made it to the actual content in Volume 5.
indeed. Well, the beginning of the content of Volume 5. For
Yes.
those that are not sure, episode 1 of our podcast has episode 7, 8, and 9, or chapter 7, 8, and 9 of this volume.
But we finally made our way around back to the beginning.
Indeed. And on that note, considering we have already seen all of Volume 5, we are splitting up this episode into a non-spoiler and spoiler section where we're going to talk about as if we've seen it for the first time, and then we'll transition into talking about it with Volume 5 knowledge.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say before we jump into the action?
Not really, other than the first time I saw this episode, it was a great experience because I got to go to the pre-screening in one of the theaters near me, and that was a really fun and cool experience.
Nice.
It's not super relevant, but yeah, that's my background with it.
That works.
Yeah, but jumping into this episode.
Indeed. Once again, multiple seconds of a black screen. Yang trailer, pretty similar phenomena. That's what I thought. It's like, oh, there's just 12 seconds of darkness with the city of Minstrel. It's about time. Which, when upon hearing that line, I was kind of just thinking, okay, this is either Nora's impatient nature, which sure, that's fine, or it's simply Rooster Teeth's way of just saying, hey, all you fans, it's coming out now.
Yeah, I feel that. I guess they're really concerned about transitioning us into it smoothly with all the darkness.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're definitely right with the about timeline because it's been like 9 months at that point, waiting. So, yes.
Yeah.
And we're excited to have finally made it.
It's true. Yeah, it's really nice to be back in new volume of RWBY. So anyway, it looks neat again. Just showing off some of the walls and all that stuff. It looked neat.
Oh, yes, the highlight of this episode, visually.
They do it like 4 times. It's like, hey, look at this cool thing. Look at these walls. Anyway, then they are chatting a little bit. It's like, who decided to walk here? And among other things, it's like, oh, well, I mean, we had a lot of problems. I mean, Volume 4.
Yeah, they give they give us a quick recap as if we had not been obsessively rewatching the previous episodes of RWBY. But just in case you weren't quite there, they do a nice little summary. And a lot of this episode, I think, is, I mean, this part is specifically a summary, but beyond that, the rest of the episode, it sort of ties in from Volume 4 as you would expect, and then begins everyone on their trajectories for this volume.
Indeed, and I believe it does a pretty good job of transitioning into most of those new scenes. Like, oh, hey, look, it's this character now.
Yeah, this is a pretty long episode, which I'm always happy to see.
Yes.
But it was definitely necessary because there were
4 different storylines going on.
Roughly, yeah.
But yeah, I think my favorite line is like, we were fine. Only one of us almost died. Hey.
Yeah, I understand they're pretty happy that they finally, quote unquote, achieved their goal.
Yeah.
Their short-term belief, if you will, of going to Mistral Haven.
Yes.
But they're playing it off pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, they did make it. They did beat the
Nublivy.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me of the name, which I didn't exactly find to be as overwhelming as they have built it up to be. But still, it's a success, and they finally made it.
Yeah, I guess it was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then anyway, they open the door, and it's pretty.
Yes, showing off that visual of Mistral that we'll see a very similar thing in the intro song.
Yes.
At the end.
This is true.
So it's immediately recognizable. And Ruby's like, ooh.
Yeah, Ruby's like, oh man, look how cool this place is. And then they have non-animated art to show off all of the little civilians.
Oh yeah, before that, I just wanted to, there's a minor thing that I mentioned.
Sure.
Or, I don't know actually where this fits into the animated sequence. Because, when Crow is, but I'll talk about it anyway. When
Sure.
when Crow is talking about like the levels of the city of Mistral and how things are nicer.
That's near the end, but yeah.
Yeah, how things are nicer as they go up. And Nora says, "We're going up."
Yep.
It just they say that exact line in the opening.
Yes.
We're going up, never be denied.
Yes.
So I don't know if that was like an intentional opening line drop. Okay. If so, good job. If not, still good job.
Yeah.
But it was cool. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah, okay. And then there's this kind of weird 2D sequence of background characters.
Yes. It kind of reminded me of how in Volume 1, it's like, oh, here are all these characters you're never going to see.
Yeah, and that's,
that's what it reminded me of, because I'm like, this is an odd transition. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to see that this is a bustling city, and that there's shady dealings and faunus. That was neat too.
Oh yeah, when I first saw this sequence, I was like kind of concerned because I don't know, I was just like confused.
Okay.
It like I guess kind of in like, you know how when some people see the 3D animation style of RWBY for the first time, they have like a visceral reaction, and they're like, "Ooh, that makes me feel uncomfortable."
Sure.
I kind of had the same thing happen to me when I saw the 2D in RWBY, just because I wasn't expecting it.
Interesting.
I was like, "Oh," and then I had this thought like, "Are they changing their style?" That was kind of abrupt. I don't know. I'm kind of slow, so it took me, until the end of the sequence to realize that it was only like a temporary thing, but it just struck me as very strange.
Okay.
But upon rewatching it, I was glad to see them like trying something different. And I mean, it looked good.
It did. It was very nicely drawn, and I liked how it's like, oh, by the way, there are these shady dealers, and then you see like this guy doing a shading deal.
Yeah. And in the images, we go through like a quick overview of things that are basically just everyday scenes and markets and shady markets.
Yeah.
And there's a large variety of people that are represented. It's very, very...
Yeah, it kind of speaks a little bit to what this city is about.
Right,
and which is nice because the only real intro we've had to the city of Minstrel and Haven Academy is kind of from the World of Remnant videos. So to see kind of this more, although not animated, scene or set of scenes that kind of just shows a little bit of the town was nice. The only reason why I was kind of confused that it wasn't animated is because when we had the Blake trailer, that marketplace was animated.
Well, okay, I think the reason is that they probably just didn't want to make all the 3D models.
Yeah, that's
just
fair.
For like, especially if they're just background characters that we may or may not see again.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the menagerie scenes are more. I mean, we saw a lot of the menagerie like scene background characters, both in, we saw them in the Blake trailer.
Yes.
And we've seen them in Volume 4.
Yeah.
And there's still a whole plot to resolve.
That's true.
In Menagerie, so I assume we'll continue to see them. But I kind of understand where they're coming from of not wanting to have to go through the work of making, like, especially because all of the people that we saw in Mistral, again, like I said, they were all very, like, varied and different. So it's not like they could recycle models one for one that they've already used.
That's fair.
When I was thinking about it, that's, like, the justification I came up with.
Yeah, and also considering how much time they can really allocate toward a specific episode, I can definitely see why they wouldn't want to fully animate an entire set of scenes for multiple marketplaces just when they're talking over them and not actually walking through them, because they're on that balcony. They're looking down at everything. They're not going anywhere except up, apparently.
Right. And to the faunus, back to the faunus.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people in those scenes. I only saw 2 faunus.
I did as well. I only saw 2 faunus, although there could be people that are not obviously faunus, like Ilya.
Yes. I mean, you can still kind of tell something's a little different about her. But you're right. But there are only 2 obvious faunus in all of the people that were.
Yes. So more of them could have been faunus. I kind of felt like some of them probably were. I just either wasn't paying enough attention or they were simply hiding it well enough.
That's possible.
Yeah, or it's just that whatever faunus trait they have is not exactly obviously noticeable. Anyway, it shows that there is a mixed population there, so that's good.
Yes.
But yeah, I think one thing that kind of struck me a little bit is it kind of shows that there are these different poverty levels, which is probably the case in most cities, but when we hear what Leo has to say later, it actually seems it's pretty interesting. It's like, oh, hey, the city has gone to crud, and stuff like that, where it's just like, dang.
And actually, in the context of that, not that we're there yet, obviously, no. But like just thinking about that when Leo's like, oh, the city's in shambles.
Yeah.
When we see these shots of everyday life in the marketplace, everyone looks like pretty happy for the most part.
I guess.
Like they're not like, dying and.
So, I mean, but you still see that there is some shady business, and like maybe you would have to like pick it out. That there is like things that go on in the shadows, and like things are not in order, and I didn't see any police or anything like that. It was just a bunch of people.
Where are the police?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
I mean,
no. I mean, I feel like that's to be expected in any city, really.
Okay.
I don't think it was anything that was uncharacteristic, especially since we've heard from Crow in the world of Remnants that Mistral has a reputation for being shady.
That's true. You are correct in terms of. So yeah, it actually does fit the personality that we have been told that the city has quite well. All right. Speaking of going up, you're now in an airship.
Good transition.
I thought that was a really well done transition.
No, it was.
I think that was
you pulled off a good duplication right there.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite one. But anyway, Weiss. She's in an airship talking to the captain. And it's like, hey, thanks for
smuggling me.
Yeah. It's like, are we close? Yeah, we're almost there. Don't worry. It's like, well, hope I haven't been to burn. It's like, haha, your money is good here. Don't worry. Which, I don't know how I felt about that. It's like Weiss wants to kind of be her own person, kind of like separate herself from the Schnee name, but it seems like...
you're right. That's a good point. It's that, yeah, her whole thing is obviously being independent and sort of getting away from the connotations of her family name.
Yeah.
And the burden that comes with it. But you're right. In this scene, it's pretty clear that, I mean, obviously it's her money that's gotten her on the ship.
Yeah.
And she's very much tied to it.
Indeed. Which is unfortunate, and, I mean, the pilot is kind of just like, yeah, it's fine because I'm getting paid for this, which is fair. I mean, he is a cargo ship owner, so he does get paid for doing kind of jobs, and I guess smuggling people is a thing he's also willing to do.
It happens, you know.
Indeed. Hard times.
Part of the life of being a pilot.
I guess so.
Anyway, yeah, one thing he says, he mentions how the journey is taking longer than expected.
Yeah, because he's been avoiding...
He says lots of air traffic around northern Anima.
Mm-hmm.
Think there's anything there?
I mean, I think it just positions where Weiss might currently be.
Yeah, okay.
Like, it tells her relative position to Mistral. I think that's pretty much it.
Right, and that's pretty close if I remember, because Mistral's in, like, the kind of upper half of Anima on the right, if I'm remembering my mental Anima map correctly.
I mean, we get a map, although it doesn't tell us exactly what it is, but when Crow, like, puts up that map.
Right,
you can kind of, like, overlay that and kind of figure out where she is, but yeah.
Yeah, and so they're pretty close.
Yeah, she is pretty close.
Oh, yeah, actually, if they're over the big lake.
Yeah.
I know my RWBY geography better than my actual geography. Because Mistral's right near the big lake, right?
Yeah.
So they're, like, just crossing.
Yeah, they're coming across that bend.
That's good.
Yeah. And then, interestingly, they pick up a broadcast, and he's like, wait, what the frick? There shouldn't be anyone out here. And it's like, oh, it's a Mayday broadcast. Ah, I see. Let me go the opposite direction.
Yeah. This scene is a really good hook, just for, like, to set up something for Weiss to do. I mean, obviously, this cuts pretty quickly afterwards, but a couple of things about that. So the Mayday broadcast, so there's clearly a ship that's been downed, presumably.
Yeah, by Grimm.
By Grimm or something of that sort.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that their huntress, they had one huntress with them, and she is down.
Yes.
Which makes me really sad, because I like seeing hunters and huntresses, and I love looking at their weapons and seeing them fight.
That's true.
So, it makes me a little sad to know that the potential we had for seeing one is knocked away right out of the park. Not, you know what I mean.
I mean,
that was a awful idiom.
Yeah, if you want to point at this instance of, oh, hey, this hunter's dead, when we get to Leo's conversation later, where he's like, we lost so many hunters.
Oh, yeah, it's awful.
It is. It's so sad. So many potential characters and so many lives lost.
I mean, it makes sense that the academy is empty or whatever because school's not in session, but it doesn't prevent me from being disappointed that we don't meet new hunters and huntresses, because it's like we're going to this new place and yeah.
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Because, oh, yeah, you're right. Let's finish talking about Weiss.
Yeah. But anyway, you are correct in saying that, oh no, there's these people that are in peril, their huntress is down, or did they specifically say huntress?
Pretty sure they did.
Okay, let's just go with that. Which, yeah, these people are pretty screwed. As Weiss says, it's like they're going to die. And he's like, well, what are we going to do about that?
That's rough.
I'm a cargo ship. We don't fight. What kind of weapons do I have on a cargo ship? The answer is none.
Which is, it's totally understandable coming from him, because he's not, basically a superhero.
Yeah.
Like the hunters and huntresses are. But,
yeah, he's a pilot.
So, yeah. But, this seems like a really good opportunity for Weiss to prove herself.
Yeah, it's an interesting moment where Weiss can't really force the guy to be like, no, we're gonna go save them, because she's pretty much their only offense.
Well, I don't know. My immediate thought was that I actually thought that Weiss would be quicker to say something like that. I thought she would right away be like, we can't do that and leave them to die or something like that.
Okay.
So I was like, I was a little surprised, I guess, when she didn't. And she just seems like she went along with it.
I mean, considering she's trying to escape, and that he does make a good point of how he doesn't explicitly say this in terms of how would we be able to help, but
right. But Weiss is a huntress, so she'd be at least be able to try to help.
She's a huntress in training.
Yeah, no, I know, but I don't know. I feel like in that sort of situation, I just feel like it's a really I don't know. It's like a classic moral dilemma problem, I guess. And I feel like Weiss would be pretty strongly compelled to help them if she could.
I agree. I mean, I also found it a bit shocking that she didn't try to push more, but considering this pilot's doing her a pretty big favor, and to try to persuade him to bring them in would endanger his life, I can see why she makes where she kind of just goes with it. I mean, I'm not saying that is a choice that she would like to make, as she's clearly conflicted over it.
Right.
But it's one that she's going to accept.
Right. No, I mean, obviously you're right about how, she's trying to lay low. She doesn't want to endanger the pilot. But I guess another reason I was expecting it is just because when the pilot says something along the lines of, my house, my rules, my plane, my rules, whatever, it made me think about, how Weiss, Weiss's whole plotline with her relationship with her family.
Yeah.
And how she's kind of being trapped under this. She was trapped under this authoritarian rule in her house, and it just seemed like a callback to me to that. So I thought that would be a trigger for her to go off and be like, I don't have to follow your rules.
I actually think it's the opposite.
How so?
If that's the kind of treatment she's used to, she might just let it slide and kind of just go along with it. Because I know she's trying to overcome that, but she hasn't. She's run away, which isn't enough to say that she's overcome it. So I think that almost shows that she is still tied to that. She isn't over that.
That's a good point. You're right. Yeah, I guess I was thinking that by running away that she's sort of began to overcome her problems, and she has. But more importantly, by running away, she has failed to confront her problems,
yes.
I guess.
Very much so.
So, I guess, yeah, I was thinking about it the other way, but you're right that it could be an intentional cue that maybe she still has more to work out.
Yeah, I I think it is, and I didn't even think of it until you brought it up. So neat. Okay, shall we move on to the actual academy itself?
Yes.
Okay, it looks nice.
Yeah, my first thoughts were that it looked very spring-like. And then I was like,
I'm not exactly sure about that, except like I guess the weather, but
no, because everything's like in bloom and it's green. But I just thought it was funny because I wasn't like thinking about maidens when I thought that.
Okay.
And then I was like, spring maiden.
Okay.
But I just thought it looked very verdant and vibrant.
Okay.
And peaceful.
Got it. It reminded me a lot, kind of what Ren's hometown looked like. To be perfectly honest, it's like, oh hey, look, similar architecture. Nice. I guess it's just the architecture of this area, which you can probably assume from Volume 4, but I don't know. It's an interesting thing to bring up. I guess.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't really notice that, but I can see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, because in Beacon, there was much different architecture than there is here, so I think that's an interesting way of drawing a little bit more about the cultures and kind of...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to say about the architecture itself. I don't really have much else to say besides I think it looks good.
Yes. So they walk in. They walk into the courtyard.
Yes.
It is empty.
It is. It is completely empty. There's just their little team and the Team Ranger, as I guess they are somewhat formally called.
Yeah, I wrote it down as Cranger in my notes.
Oh, you're having crows there as well. I see. I guess that's fair.
Yeah, just anyway.
But anyway, they're proud. They have made it to their goal. I think RWBY might wipe away a tear. I'm not completely sure. But yeah, no, they should be proud. They made they did a pretty long journey. It took a long time to get there. And it was quite dangerous, as they mentioned in the little summary of, oh yeah, one of us almost died, the one that was the most skilled, so.
Right. And at this point of the episode, it sort of crossed my mind, and this is answered later, but I just wanted to bring it up very briefly now.
Yep.
I was like, where's Oz? Do they leave him, like, back at the shack?
I mean...
Because
yeah,
we see them meet up at the end, later on in this episode, but because we had already seen that scene at the end of Volume 4, I assumed that he was with them.
Yeah, but it turned out that scene actually times when all this occurred. So, like, that last scene of Volume 4 was actually a jump forward.
Right, it was which I did not think.
Yeah. Oh, so that's kind of fair. It's like, oh, what happened to this guy? Because certainly when they met with Leo, if they had Oz with them, they would have mentioned that.
Or maybe they wouldn't have, because Crow is very suspicious.
I don't think he was nearly suspicious enough to hold back the idea.
He was very suspicious.
I mean, rightfully so, but I don't think he would have withheld that information. But maybe he would have. Anyway,
yeah, Crow is really suspicious because there's no one there.
Yeah, he kind of just glances around immediately in the courtyard and just kind of like, huh, wait, This is odd.
And then someone brings up that maybe it's because school is not in session.
And then he's like, no, this isn't right. But before
Still
that,
too quiet.
Yeah, before that, hello.
Oh yeah. When I was watching that, I was like, wow, that's kind of obnoxious. And then Nora, right after that, just calls her out, which I thought was really funny.
I'm not sure if she was being serious or not.
She was definitely like...
I thought maybe she was like, really? You're being really loud. Or maybe she was like,
that's
seriously.
Definitely how I interpreted it.
Okay. Because initially I interpreted it like that, but then the second time I heard it, I'm like, wait, I think she might actually be seriously suggesting, wait, I think we should be louder.
It is kind of hard to tell with Nora sometimes, to be fair.
I agree.
But yeah, that's definitely how I interpreted it. That she was like calling her out for being like really loud and obnoxious.
Okay. The reason why I thought she maybe wasn't and it was a serious suggestion is because she put it up as a question. She has a questioning sound at the end of her voice where it's just like, I think we should actually be louder.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but it's not that important. It was pretty funny either way.
I agree. It was pretty amusing. Anyway, Crow gets ready for battle. They go up to a door. Get ready. Kicks it
Oh,
down.
yeah. And again, Crow's being really paranoid here.
Yeah, super paranoid.
It's like...
I mean, no one else
anything
is
could
there.
be behind this door.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's right. Fair. I mean, after the fall of Beacon, I would be paranoid. I'd be like, wait, this is weird. This is wrong. What's going on here? This can't be okay. Kicks down the door. Ah. You scared me half to death.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Oh,
so
poor Leo.
Crow kicks down the door with his, weapon at the ready.
Yeah.
All of Team Ranger is behind him with their weapons all ready.
Yeah.
Kicks down the door right into Oz's face.
Leo's.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah. Headmasters, they all look alike.
Yeah.
Anyway, he kicks down the door into Leo's face.
Yeah. Well, not into it, but right in front of him when he was just standing there.
Yes. And then Crow loses his balance and is surprised and falls.
That was funny.
That was funny. And then Leo, passes out.
Yeah. Rightfully so. Door gets suddenly kicked in front of him. Multiple guns bearing him down. Ah. Fair reaction to just simply kind of faint. Considering, as he mentioned later, I'm not the fighter I used to be. He looks old. He does look like
a little judgmental. I mean, Ozpin looks old.
Yeah, but it turned out.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying,
fine.
It could be more than meets the eye.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, or not. We know that we know that he's compromised, right?
At this point, yeah.
Yes, we know that Leo has been compromised by Salem, specifically Watts.
Yes.
By the end bit that we saw at the end of Volume 4, or near the end of Volume 4.
And also
more in this episode, obviously.
Yeah, where you hear Watts' voice and see Watts' symbol, and it's like, Leo, we need to work on your improvisational skills. It's like, oh no.
So again, Crow is, justified, I guess, for being as suspicious as he is, even though he doesn't know it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand where he's coming from, considering, there was this whole big mess in Vale. It's like the entire academy was taken down. It's like, wait, and you're not taking proper procedure to protect your academy? This is what? But then when he explains, a whole bunch of huntsmen died and the country's in chaos, it does make a little bit sense why he couldn't necessarily keep a whole bunch of people there.
It is a pretty good explanation.
Yeah, I would find that fairly reasonable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't find it completely reasonable to have no one there.
Yeah.
Considering
Leo. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does say not much of a fighter.
Exactly.
Basically leaving the relic undefended is a little fishy.
It is kind of fishy, although I mean, I have no idea where that thing would be, so
right, that's true.
Yeah, it might not be very easy to get to. Anyway.
Yeah, so anyway, back to the actual continuation of the scene, because we got a little off track again.
Yeah.
So after they both fall down, Leo's like, "Oh, you almost scared me half to death," or whatever. And then Crow is like, "Really? Where were you? Why didn't you meet us outside?"
He's like...
And then he checks the time. He's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess it was that time."
Yeah, it's like, whoops, sorry about that. I got way too caught up with other things. It's like, hey, look, the time slipped away. It's like, gosh darn it. Crow's just like, are you freaking kidding me? How leisurely are you taking this at the moment? Like,
exactly.
What? Right. And then I just like how then instead of just ignoring Crow's accusations, like, oh, you must be the students. Oh, how great to meet you. Which I like that, because, you have this, principal guy. It's like, oh, look at these new students. Oh, look how great they are.
Yeah, he's being very jolly towards them.
Yeah, I liked it. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then Crow's like, no, you're not off the hook. Who's guarding the relic? He's like, wait, what do you mean the relic? Why are you telling this in front of the show? I filled them in. He's like, what? Wait, why?
Yeah, so Crow mentions the relic, obviously, to Leo.
Yeah.
And, Leo obviously doesn't know that the students know about the relic. And he seems a little shocked.
fair, considering
it's this big secret.
Yeah, it's a super secret
that they've been keeping among, basically just the headmasters, and then also
like a few,
like Glinda, Crow,
Winter,
Raven.
Yeah, not many people.
Not many people, for a long time. So.
So justified in terms of being surprised.
Yeah.
Then let's see. The last thing I have is that Nora's just kind of looking at RWBY like, is anyone else thinking this is going a bit weird? And RWBY seeming a little bit distressed. Like she kind of just grabs one of her arms and looks kind of down, sad, downcast. It's like, oh dear. This is not going well.
Yeah.
To the second transition, which walls. At first, I saw these walls. I'm like, is this supposed to be Blake's? And then it was. It was Blake's. So that was apparently a good enough transition.
Good job.
Arguably confusing at first because, well, what was like, have I seen these walls before? But in reality, just enough to make it work. To just cue your interest and like, wait, this might be Blake.
And even if you did not pick up on that, it's pretty obvious when we see Sun and Gira slam through the doors.
Unbelievable.
And they're both being adorable.
Total garbage.
They're both super angry at something.
We can't let them get away with this.
And yeah, so they're both really mad. They seem to, as Kali points out hilariously.
Yes.
They don't seem to realize, but they're like actually getting along for the first time ever.
Yep.
Which is a hilarious realization.
Yeah, at least the two of you finally agree on something. She looks so pleased when she says that too. She's like, yes.
And then Sun's like, ooh, my bad.
Oh no! Oh, I thought Sun was like, heh, that's great. And Gira's like, gosh darn it. It's like, wait, shit, I agreed with the kid. No. It's like, no, I can't accept this child. I can't. Not allowed. I'm the father.
Basically, which I think, probably bodes well for any future relationship they might have.
Yeah, probably.
Because when Gira isn't all caught up in his fatherly act of, I have to protect my daughter.
Yeah.
He actually seems to fundamentally get along with Sun on some level.
Yeah. And then after that, Blake's like, oh, okay, it's going to be fine. And then later she's like, I need a moment.
Yeah, so then Blake, who is the object of their contention, calms them down, and then then she goes outside to her porch, where there's a guard who is watching her house, which is
good.
It's a good thing to have, because we know the white thing is lurking about, as we see after Blake asks for a moment of being alone, and
you need better security.
Yeah, Ilya pops out of the shadows. You guys really need better security.
And then Blake's like, I'm reaching for the door. It's like, no, wait, please. I just want to talk. Which, that's so nice. It's just like, I just want to have a civil conversation about how you should get out of town and really stop doing anything with the White Fang.
Yeah, so in this conversation with Ilya, Blake fills us in on what had just happened.
Yeah, I was confused about that.
Yeah, and so at first when Gira and Sun walk in, they're angry about something, but we don't know what it is, because the last that we saw of all four of them that I remember was that they all were like gathered around and they promised to take back the White Fang or start afresh.
Yes.
So obviously some time has passed since then.
Yes.
But as Blake and Ilya exposit to us, what had happened was that the whole gang had gone down to try to arrest or try to bring the evidence that they had acquired from Ilya's scroll after Ilya ambushed them.
Yeah.
They were going to bring that evidence that there was radical White Fang stuff going on to try and bring Corsic and Fennec, who are behind this, as we know, to justice, and as they know too.
Yeah.
And so Corsican Fennec, they put this all on Ilya.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, she's just a crazy radical. Like,
yeah.
What a shame. She was a nice kid.
Dang.
And basically, I mean, that is basically good enough to get them off scot-free, which is, kind of sucky. Yeah. And that's why Gira and Sun are so mad about it.
All right. Yeah, I didn't really get that when I first saw that, and, well, thanks for explaining it, because otherwise I don't really know if I would have gotten it properly. But no, that does make a lot of sense. Where it's
my
just
poor stuttery explanation, yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. Where it's just like, yeah, they tried to pin the blame on you. It's like, can you really stand for that? Ilya's like, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to really bother her.
No, she seems much more concerned with the fact that Blake might get hurt in all of this, and that she's going to have to, like, do something about that. Where it's like, you should just leave. And Blake says, you gotta make me. And then she goes, I know, and I don't like that, and it makes me sad. I even took off my mask to show you my face, to show you my emotions. And now that you have discarded them, I shall put on my mask and jump away.
Right. Good summary.
Yes.
And just in a little more detail, Blake says to Ilya, when we go public tomorrow, the faunists of Menagerie are not going to stand for what Corsican Fennec are doing. And neither should you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that kind of cues us in a little bit as to what Blake is planning to do.
Yeah.
They're going to try to convince the people of Menagerie with this evidence of White Fang radicalism to join their side and realize that the White Fang is bad.
Yeah. Do you think that would work?
Well, we can hope.
Yeah.
Based...
Like, I kind of agree with Ilya that it might not work out.
Why do you think?
Primarily because I don't know if this is, like, enough evidence to really show that, oh no, there are these radical White Fang members, or enough that the people of Menagerie would care. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like enough to really work.
Right, but surely Gira being their chieftain would carry some weight.
That's true. That is true that in that regard, I guess it could work. I don't know. I just don't see it as enough of a call to action. Like, it kind of seems like that there would be a distance of like, oh, hey, it's all the way over there, and we're all the way over here, and that's fine.
Right, you're right. Menagerie is pretty isolated.
Yeah.
From everything else. And obviously, news doesn't travel very fast or thoroughly because...
Oh, that reminds me of one thing to jump back to. Sorry to go back to the Leo conversation, but when Crow's like, yeah, local comms are still up. Keep in touch. I found it very amusing where she's like, hey, look, the scrolls, like, keep in touch. Oh, we forgot to talk about the map, too.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing I want to point out about the map is that Leo did some fancy stuff on his desk that seemed...
Did that already happen in that scene? Or was that in another? Because there are two...
Oh, you're right. It is later. I have gotten ahead of myself. I am sorry.
All this narrative jumping around, us jumping around, it doesn't mix very well.
It doesn't. No, right? It breaks up nicely.
We're disjointed enough as is.
Yeah, I know, right? Ugh. Anyway, sorry. Sorry about that. I am blatantly incorrect in terms of the ordering. Let us go back to Blake.
Yes. So, yeah, you were saying... Oh, yeah, and I was saying that news obviously travels slowly because I was thinking about back in Volume 4 when Blake and Son meet Corsican Fennec at the door for the first time.
Yeah.
Gira, even being the chieftain of Menagerie, he has no idea about the White Fang's arguably instrumental role in the downfall of Beacon.
This is true. I mean, I also wonder if that information was just hidden.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely also a possibility.
Yeah.
Because it seems like Corsican Fennec are pretty on top of things.
Yeah.
Given their, smooth sidestepping of the law here.
Yep.
And so on.
Yeah, they seem like to know what they need to do to keep up the facade of we're just simple White Fang members instead of radical White Fang members. But anyway, after the engagement with Ilya, Ilya's sad. She's like, oh no. And Ilya doesn't really seem like she wants to fight Blake, which is what you could get from the
the
character
trailers.
short.
Yeah.
And then Blake at first is angry. She's like, "But then she kind of softens and just like sighs, just kind of like, I don't want to deal with this.
Oh yeah. Okay. So more on the end of this exchange.
Yeah.
So Blake says, Ilya tells her that she's gonna have to leave, and Blake's like, "You're gonna have to make me."
Yeah.
And Ilya says,
I
know." And anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to Ilya's voice actor, because I just like rewatching that scene, and I don't know, just thinking about how great of a character that Ilya, or like how interested I am in Ilya as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just wanted to give a shout out specifically because I really liked her delivery on all of the lines in the scene. Like, I just thought like the "I know" was very like laden with emotion.
It was,
and her voice is also like pretty distinct, I think, from other female voices on the show. Because a lot of the other female voices are more like feminine or high pitched, I guess, and Ilya's is more like gravelly and I don't know. It's just like a good job.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The exchange was well done by both sides. But yeah.
And then after she jumps away, Blake's grimace.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why, but I always feel like some of Blake's facial expressions always strike me as awkward.
Okay.
That grimace definitely looked pretty awkward to me.
That looked awkward to you? Okay,
yes.
I thought it was fine.
Okay. I don't know why. Because, like, there's that, and there's also in the Volume 4 intro, like, her face, her close-up shot, when she's... Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I do.
Okay, that's fine. But I thought she had an awkward face there, too, and I don't know. But, you know, it's whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of just, once again, similar to the Blake short, how she felt bad that she kind of let Ilya go. It was kind of like another exchange where it's like, oh, that didn't go too great. I kind of let her go again, and, like, I have to fight my potential old buddy and stuff like that. Where it's kind of just a whole bunch of conflicted emotions of frustration and sadness and...
And also, she did tell Ilya that they were going to go public tomorrow.
Yeah, she did.
So that, you know, maybe wasn't the best tactical move.
You're right. Telling the enemy your plans is not typically the best way to go.
I think that's in The Art of War somewhere.
Somewhere.
I haven't read it, but, you know, I
Neither have I. But yeah. Indeed. Shall we move on to the thing that I accidentally jumped to?
Yes.
Awesome. Recklessness is how this is opened up with. Leo's like, that was pretty reckless of you. And Crow's like, really? You want to call me reckless? I know that I might be reckless, but come on, man. Do you see how many hunters are in this room? It's me and you. That's it. That's apparently what's on this entire campus. That's weird.
And yeah, he is right.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, as we know, Leo is compromised.
As we find out later, yes.
Well, as we already knew. And yes, as we find out later in this episode.
Yes.
Again, confirming our belief. Leo is compromised. So this seems like, I mean, Crow's bringing up that it's like an obvious security flaw. And, you know, it could very easily be Leo's intentional, like, part of whatever plan he and Watts have.
It's true. I mean, he does have the very convenient excuse of that the council probably doesn't want to give up hunters and huntresses for maybe their own protection or their own needs. So it's fair to say that, I can't really get too many people until school's in session, because when the students are here, it would make sense to have a bunch of hunters and huntresses, and the council can't even deny that. But without school in session, they don't know about the relics, so it's not as if it's like, we need to guard this area that's just where the school is. It's like, let's just have this school security guard crew. It's like, why? It's like summer vacation or something. It's like, that doesn't seem overly important.
Right. And back to I keep trying to say Oz. Back to Leo's explanation for why there isn't anyone there. It is a really good explanation. He talks about how, you know, from everyone else's perspective, who was not at Beacon for the fall of Beacon, you know, Cinder's message of, everything is awful and falling apart,
yeah,
was very effective. Just based on
yes,
watching the TV broadcast, that's certainly what it appeared to be. And you know, at one point, at the end of the broadcast is cut, and the rest of the people of the world have no chance to see, no
what
opportunity to
next?
see that. I mean, ultimately, the Battle of Beacon, it's not won.
Huh.
It sort of ends in a kind of stalemate as.
If you want to call losing an entire academy and
Oh, okay, it's definitely bad, but like,
as Ruby says, it's bad. It's bad. No, it's pretty dang bad.
It is bad, but I'm saying it could have gone a lot worse.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? Okay.
I guess total annihilation would have been worse.
I don't mean to downplay, like, oh, I guess it was kind of bad. But, like, at the end with, like, the Silver Eyes and freezing the Wyvern Dragon Grim and etc., it could have been worse. But they didn't. Oh, yeah, and specifically also the Atlas drones being shut down.
Yeah.
So on. People of the world didn't get a chance to see that.
Yeah.
So they only saw, like, up to the really bad parts.
That's true. They only saw the worst of the scenario.
Is what I was trying to say, I think.
Yeah. I mean, to point that out, it was kind of where he's listening to that poor girl being torn apart, and Ruby's reaction to that. It's like, oh, no. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to be reminded of that.
Do they know that she was a robot?
I have no idea.
Because the way he said it...
Yeah, it sounded like not.
Sounded like they definitely didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe not.
Which is like... it's fair because, the whole thing was like interrupted shortly after we saw Penny being torn apart.
Yeah, they shut down the broadcast pretty quickly after.
Yeah, so... I don't know if that will ever be relevant again, but it's...
Yeah.
Just, I guess, like an interesting detail.
It is, because maybe people watching that might have just seemed like someone just got murdered.
But I guess, no, I take it back, because Cinder does, she talks about it in her...
she does.
In her whole, why would Atlas want to make a robot disguised as a little girl?
Right, so they probably put two and two together.
So I guess in retrospect, it's kind of weird that Leo said that.
I mean... or you could say that he did realize that, this person was, like, to some extent, like, still a humanoid person that seemed to maybe have their own personality. I mean, he never met her, but she was, like, viciously destroyed on live broadcast in a friendly-ish tournament. So, yeah, that's not exactly child-friendly.
You're right.
Yeah. That's not exactly hopeful or a good thing to see. So,
and, I'm positive they'll never go into that, but it's kind of interesting. About, like, what people thought about that.
I mean, I imagine it could get brought up at some point, considering... I mean, actually, since we just said, they are probably not going around Mistral, because they're like, oh, hey, look at these 2D images of these people that live here. So, you know what? They're probably not going to get a survey on what people thought about the fall of Vale.
Though I would love that.
That would make me so sad. I don't know who would have the balls to do that. I don't think I would after that. Dang, I don't even know. Dang.
Yes, and anyway, we know the effect that it had on them. That everything, everything got super chaotic.
Yeah.
Everyone was distraught and full of emotions and terror.
Yes.
The prospect of, the fall of Beacon and...
Yes. Oh, you're talking about the people of the world, not the people at Vale at the time.
Well, I am talking about the people in Haven.
Okay.
In relationship to Leo's explanation.
Yes.
And that is what caused Grim attacks.
Yes.
Presumably all over the world. But in this context specifically, in Haven, Leo brings up that Haven has really large territories, which are hard to defend.
Yes.
So it
sucks. Was a fun time.
And he basically says that lots of huntsmen died.
Yeah, that's really sad.
And he also mentions that there were teachers from this very institution that died. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it must have been pretty bad because, the professors are, as we've seen, generally badasses. Yeah,
it's true. They are typically quite good. I imagine it wasn't just the ones at Vale that could kick some butt. So that, it must have been really bad. Like, probably similar to how a bunch of Grimm stormed Vale. Remember how when things were kind of like getting all negative and downcast, when a whole bunch of
I might have seen those
stampede episodes of Grimm just came in? It could have been similar, which That's bad.
Right.
That's a lot of Grim.
Right, especially because Vale is more centralized, I feel, than Mistral, as Leo was pointing out.
Yeah.
They're probably less. The defenses are probably less cohesive and centralized.
Agreed.
And especially, Vale, like I was sort of alluding to, sort of had it easier than it could have thanks to the Silver Eyes Ex Machina.
Okay.
So yeah, it was. Yes, Leo's point is good.
Yes,
I think is what we're trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Leo saying that Mistral's council is at odds with Atlas, and it sounds like that's due to Ironwood's kind of being more of a what is the word I can use that will not seem him like a complete jerk? Hard ass.
Yeah. So Leo explains that he doesn't know what happened to James in Vale, but that first there was a dust embargo.
Yeah.
And then
just closing off the borders.
Atlas, was closing the borders. And he says that it brought out some of James' more negative tendencies. Yeah. Which I interpreted as paranoia.
Yeah.
Or something to that degree. Because we know he's isolating himself. Yeah. In the country. No one gets in or out. Yeah. Etc.
Indeed. But yeah, then that quickly moves on to Crow just kind of saying, well, since we don't know what Spring Maiden is, it's even worse that what you're doing. And then Ruby's like, wait, come on, guys, let's calm down. We can do something with this. I just like how Ruby's like, let's diffuse this scenario. Let's take it one step at a time. Why does the Spring Maiden matter? And Leo's like, really? I need to explain this? You didn't explain this to them? I thought you said you filled them in. Just a little jab at Crow, just like, why? You're annoying me. I'm going to annoy you now.
Before we talk about that,
sure,
there was something that I wanted to bring up that kind of sidetracked me when I was watching. Okay. Just for two reasons. It's because one of the things that Leo mentions when he's talking about how the people were afraid of is he mentions that they were afraid of the threat of a looming war. Yes, right? That is true. Which Cinder hints at in her monologue, where I don't know how familiar you are with all of it, but she's talks about how, the peace between our nations is fragile, and the rulers of our nations conduct their business with iron gloves, etc. So I went back and I watched The World of Remnant about the Great War, and it just had me thinking about how. So obviously, then Leo mentions that Atlas imposed a dust embargo, before deciding to close its borders on Mistral. And I was just thinking that might be a little strange because historically in the Great War, Mantle, now Atlas, and Mistral were two allies. They were one side of the war. And it makes me think about who are they afraid of going to war with?
I wonder if it's more of in Mistral itself, simply because, as they were saying, it's a big nation. So you could have like different sides of people that maybe like rule different areas. Because if there's a council, it makes you think that there are a bunch of people in charge. So maybe they all have like their own little areas. Like maybe you have a whole bunch of people that are in charge, but they're spread out across the land, and that might be a civil war.
That would actually make a lot of sense because of how spread out we know the landmass of Mistral is. Yeah, it would make sense if they were like small.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I wasn't thinking that they were gonna go to war with Atlas over a trade embargo. Like, that does not sound like a wise thing to do.
I can't think of a single major series that starts off like that.
Oh.
Oh
no.
Anyway. Yeah, no, what you bring up a really good point that I didn't think of, because I was not thinking at all about the power play within Mistral. And that would be really interesting to hear about, and that would be cool if they went into that.
That's true.
I was specifically thinking about, like, war between the different countries, continents, whatever, kingdoms.
Ooh, I don't think they would do that. That is not smart, considering communications are down, and you start a war. You don't start a war with just humans. Grimm show up, too. You are asking to perish if you do that right now.
And I was just confused, I guess, because it didn't seem very likely. Because I don't think Vale's gonna fight anyone.
No.
Even based on the limited information that people have, I don't think they'd feel threatened by that.
Yeah.
Or the only thing I can think of is maybe by Atlas, because they saw the Legion Knights turning on citizens and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I don't either.
They could also be concerned about just war with the Grimm, I guess, in general, maybe. I don't know.
Don't think so, because Grimm just kind of react and attack instead of like act in groups, as far as we know, except for like packs of Beowulfs, maybe.
Well, I think they do like travel in packs. Let me not just exactly reiterate what you just said.
Okay.
But I mean, I think they can act as like a group instead of like just strictly being individuals. I think if that's what you're saying.
Yes. It's just I don't necessarily think that they coordinate attacks against villages. I think that they just are drawn to a village.
Right. Okay, I see what you're saying. Not in like a planning an ambush kind of thing.
So in that regard, I don't think that they are. I mean, they are certainly concerned about Grimm, but not to the point where they believe that they are going to have an all-out war against them.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd call it a war or whatever.
It's kind of more than a war. It's kind of an everlasting struggle.
Same.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so the maiden.
Yes.
The maiden.
Relics can only be reached by maidens. That's a neat piece of information.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, what?
It makes you wonder what else Crow left out in his little explanation.
Yeah, and since we know that the maiden powers are based from the wizard, makes you wonder if, since they came from the same source, if they were split, if there is some sort of unique characteristic to them all. I mean, and they list off all the relics and such, so.
Right. I mean, there's definitely obviously a lot to be said about that.
Yes.
In the maiden powers that we still, very obviously don't know very much about.
Yeah, we pretty much just saw the Fall Maiden use them, Cinder use them. We were told that they are pretty much magic. And yeah. That's kind of a majority of what we know about the maiden powers. But yeah, anyway, to go through the relics, winter is creation, summer, destruction, fall, choice, and spring, knowledge. So that's interesting. Not really sure what to say about those, considering we don't really know too much, I would say, about what the relics are or what they do.
Well, yeah, nothing about... we don't know anything about that, I don't think.
Probably not.
Yeah, and so then specifically they mention that, or Leo mentions, someone mentions that the definitely not Oz.
Yeah.
They mention that the issue is with the spring maiden.
Yeah.
Which seems to imply that the other maidens are under control.
They're accounted for. I mean,
or at least accounted for. Yeah. I mean, obviously not under control because Cinder, which is the only other maiden we know about.
Yes.
So it kind of makes you wonder what they're hiding from us.
Yeah, so I guess Summers is the Summer Maiden's known, and the Winter Maiden is known as well, which is an interesting statement.
Presumably, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously we don't know, but just based on the way that it's phrased here,
yes,
it could just be that the Spring Maiden is the most pertinent currently, so that's what they're focusing on.
Sure.
Or it could be that, well, we already know where they are, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's arguably the case. I mean, when they ask, hey, what happened to the Spring Maiden, they just explain that Spring Maiden got her powers, was determined, and then ran away because she couldn't handle it.
Right.
Yeah. And then that was a decade ago, and they was like, oh no, we don't know where she is. And then Crow's like, I do. Probably. And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, it's not good news. Of course it's good news. Come on, man. It's been a decade. Do you know how long I've been waiting for this? I already mentioned it. A decade.
And so I think that ties back to what we were saying about in our video in our episode where we went over the intro, where we talked about the person that was standing across from
Cinder.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that background was a camp-ish thing, so that's probably the bandit camp.
Yeah, I mean, we know from the we know from the trailer and from this that Crow believes that the maiden is with Raven.
Yes.
And so that, 2 and 2 makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
And I think we were thinking that in our intro review. So that kind of just lends strength to that theory and fits in with what we know. And she doesn't look that old. I mean, I guess it fits in with the timeline of 10 years. It's been a decade. She would have been pretty young then when she ran away. But I guess not that much younger than Ruby.
I imagine, my guess is 16, 17.
I actually am an awful judge of age, so I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to guess 16, 17, maybe a bit older.
That she is now, or that she's when she ran away?
No, now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she was probably under the age of 10 when she left.
That's really young.
My guess. Yep.
Yang
tried to run away with Ruby. That didn't go well.
True.
It was fortunate that she got picked up by bandits, to be honest.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. No, I'm an awful judge of age, so I don't know, but it seems to roughly fit with what we know then.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, and then this is where the map, the previously mentioned map shows up, where it's like, oh, hey, look, she's probably about here. Then Leo's like, man, good job, Crow. It's like, despite all the stuff I said about you before, it's good work. We now know where the Spring Maiden is, and we can get to it in a few weeks. I'm sorry. Did you say weeks? We don't. Weeks is too long, Leo. It's like, well, I can't really do too much about that now, can I?
Right. It seems like Leo is definitely part of a slow-moving bureaucracy here at Haven. That is very much obviously not Crow's speed.
Yeah. I mean, also, he did have a decent reason of the council's not exactly going to think a bandit camp is worthwhile, and since they don't know about the maidens, we can't make that argument.
Right. It's tricky and annoying that the council doesn't seem to know about the whole maiden relic thing, which is, pretty critical.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole reason why you'd go after the camp.
Right.
But they're not but he can't convince them of that. It's like, oh no, there are these bandits, and we have to go after them. Why? For reasons I can't tell you. Okay, we're not doing it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Brief note when Crow says that he suspects that the Spring Maiden is with the Bronwyn tribe.
Yes.
Jean's like, Yang's mom?
Yeah.
And
it's like, yep.
I just, that's a weird way to say Raven.
Yep.
I feel like it was mostly for the benefit of the viewer, just to, make sure we know there's the connection there.
Okay.
Because I feel like it would be much more natural to say, your sister or something.
Okay. Well, so John knows Yang better than he knows Crow, and also, based off Volume 4, he's not the overly fond of Crow, in my opinion. But,
really?
Yeah. I felt like he had a little bit of tension with Crow in terms of, oh, why have you been following me? Why did you use Ruby as bait, seemingly? It's like, why are you hiding things from us? He seems a little bit on edge with Crow. To the point where I think it does make sense that he would maybe compare Raven with Yang before he would think of Crow.
I didn't really get that vibe, but
okay.
It's been a little while since I've seen Volume 4, to be
sure.
fair. So I'd probably have to go back and rewatch it to confirm that. Mm-hmm. But I think it was just... I felt like it was a to-be-expected amount of tension with John, which leads into what I wanted to say about... just back a couple minutes where we were before about how when Leo was explaining things, it was very apparent, both, I think, Ruby's reaction on Penny, and then John also had a pretty intense reaction when, obviously, he didn't say Pyrrha because they didn't know, but when they were talking about the general loss of life and etc., there's a moment where John, pretty intensely, clenches his fist, and
that's a different moment. He puts his hand on the hilt of his, or on the top of his sword. The fist moment is later when he asks about Cinder.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's what I'm thinking of.
No,
My bad.
but you are correct in that he does tense up and
Oh yeah, specifically Cinder, right? Which
yes.
makes more sense because Cinder killed Lyra.
Yes.
Spoilers.
Not really.
I mean, if you haven't seen Volume 3.
If you haven't seen Volume 3, you should not be listening to Volume 5, Chapter 1.
Anyway. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm sorry, I got the chronology messed up there. That is what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's like a dramatic music flare when that happens, and it's like there's a lot of pent up stuff going on with Jean.
Yeah, as usual, the music is a great accompaniment. Accompaniment? Is that how you say that?
That's how I'd say it.
Okay, to what actually goes on in the visuals. So, good job, Rooster Teeth, as usual. Moving on, I think, you just kind of get into the part where it's like, oh, a few weeks, no, you can't do that. A few weeks is too much. But the kingdom is in shambles. We can't just do that.
And then Crow's like, man, screw the council. We'll do it ourselves.
We can do it. And then Nora's reaction, yeah.
Everyone's like, yeah. And then Ren's like, perhaps there's a more peaceful solution. Yeah. Everyone just ignores him.
Yeah. So
good try. Good try, Ren.
Yeah, so John's reaction was not of, oh yeah, let's do that. It was only Nora and Ruby.
Yeah, right.
Like Nora's like, yeah, and Ruby's like, fist of awesome. It's like, yeah, we got this. And then Leo's like, really? Look at reality. I'm not much of a fighter. You have to take on your sister, and the rest of us cannot deal with an entire bandit tribe and a maiden.
Which, that's fair.
Very fair. If you saw what happened with Cinder using her powers, holy crud, is that something you don't want to deal with?
Right.
But yeah.
Oh yeah. So and then, they ask if he has anything on Cinder and Co. because they said that they came from Haven Academy.
Yes.
And then
they say no, just lies and forgeries, and that's when John gets frustrated. He clenches his fists in anger and lets out an angry sound.
And again, presumably, jumping ahead to when we get confirmed that, Leo is compromised, which we already kind of knew, is presumably, Leo is lying here and he had a hand in that.
I guess you're right.
Because...
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, because... We kind of know that he's being controlled.
I mean, I don't know about controlled, but that he's working with Watts, who is working with Salem, so... Yeah, what do you think about that? Like, that's an interesting thing of just like, we have you under our thumb. I don't know how that happened, and I hope we find out more about why he is even listening to Watts and therefore Salem.
Right. So, I mean, what we've seen so far is we really just saw, again, that scene that I keep referencing at the end of Volume 4, where Watts is there and he seems to be meeting with Leo.
Yeah.
And he says, Salem always said you were very accommodating. I mean, it definitely seems like Leo is working with them.
Yeah.
And again, based on what I was saying in our intro review thing, what it looks like to me, based on the intro, is that there's like a puppet master relationship going on with Watts.
Yeah.
Controlling him. And I mean, that's what it looks like because I keep trying to jump ahead to the scene where Watts comes in, but maybe we should just get there.
What do you mean? The scene where Watts
Well, I mean, where Watts' voice
yes.
talks to Leo.
Yeah, it's just, you need to work on your... Yeah, we already mentioned it, but...
Yeah, and I mean, based on that, it seems like Watts is watching and critiquing and,
Yeah, he listened to the entire conversation.
Very puppet mastery, yeah.
Yeah, he's behind the scenes and listening in, and yeah, he does definitely have a hand in this and such. I was just more of asking if you had any thoughts as to why Leo might have done this.
Why exactly?
Because my thought is like, maybe the fall of the beacon. It's like he turned somewhere else. Like, in order to, like, protect his own, like country or stuff like that. Like he just kind of turned to what seemed to be the more favorable side since Oz gone, Beacon fallen, not exactly looking good. Like that's kind of the impression I got, because otherwise I'm not exactly sure why he would.
Right.
Turn.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say.
Fair.
One thing that I know I've heard, and that kind of feeds into this, is about how how like Oz, Wizard of Oz, sure. I'm bringing that up.
Okay.
How, and then, okay, so just to say what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
How Oz is like the Wizard of Oz.
Sure.
And then the people around him are representative of the, the Cowardly Lion, the Scarecrow, and Tin Man.
Tin Man is Ironwood, yeah.
And I think
so. Cowardly Lion, Leo.
I think the first thought was, that before we met Leo, was that it was like there were other people that were fitting into that.
Sure.
Or it was maybe like Crow, Scarecrow, and Taiyang, Cowardly Lion, or something.
Okay.
But
interesting.
Now that Leo Lionheart, I think is a pretty
easy,
pretty good indicator that if this sort of comparison were to hold true, that he would be Cowardly Lion, and then Ironwood obviously would be the Tin Man, which seems to me would logically leave the leader of the Academy in Bakuo, Shade, to be the Scarecrow. Obviously, we haven't seen him
or
yet,
her.
or her yet, but that would be my presumption.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the line "you scared me half to death" kind of helps as well.
Right, and the way that he just like faints when granted pretty scary, but I mean I think that could serve to highlight that sort of thing.
Yeah, that is fair.
Maybe he's scared easy.
Maybe so. Anyway, moving on. It's like yes, where. This is when Crow just kind of says, well, that wasn't a very fun conversation. Local comms are up, so keep in touch. Still humorous, and I felt it was humorous as a way. It's like, yeah, here, look at my scroll. Keep in touch, haha. And then they leave, and then Ruby's like, it was nice meeting you, Professor. Likewise.
It's pretty adorable.
I know.
Ruby's still trying to,
be so nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So good. And then it turns out he's a traitor.
RIP.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Watts scene is what we were just talking about.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Then in the hallway, it's like, oh, what are we going to do now? You guys are going to go. You guys are going to go back to the place, and I'm going to get drunk. It's fine. Yeah, and then they kind of look at each other like...
Typical Crow.
Yeah.
Classic Crow.
Yeah, and then Oscar, and then you have the scene at the bar, which, end of Volume 4, Oscar's like, hi there. It's like, what are you doing here, Pipsqueak? It's like, shut up, I'm getting there. Jeez, why are you ignoring me? And then kind of like, can I have my cane back? And then Crow, with all of his wisdom, just kind of slightly surprised, nods his head like, yes.
Yeah, I don't want to analyze the details of this scene too much because it's literally, the verbatim scene that we saw at the end of Volume 4. And when I first saw it, I was actually really surprised that they showed it again.
I mean, I think it was to date the, so that it showed when Oscar Oz steps in.
Right. I mean, I get that. But, no, I see what you're saying. But it just makes me think, what it makes me think of is that they had a plan in mind for Volume 5.
Okay.
Yes, that's this volume, Volume 5.
It is.
And that maybe they rethought it a little bit and they had to reorder the events.
Oh.
Because I don't know why they would re-show a scene they already showed.
2 reasons. One, I think it makes sense in what you were mentioning earlier of, if Oz had showed up, would they hide that from Leo? I don't think they would have. Despite Crow's suspicions, them just walking in the very first time, he wouldn't hide that. And 2, to have the nice transition to, aren't you a bit too young to drink water? It's hot out with the whole Yang being at the thing.
Right, sure. But, I don't know. It just struck me as strange that they would show something out of order like that, and it just makes me think that originally they had planned to like have that at the beginning. Then they had like some of the same thoughts that you had. They were like, oh, it makes more sense for him to come in like after they meet him for the first time. And so then I don't know. Obviously, that's completely unsubstantiated, but it just felt weird that they played the same scene again.
Okay, I just kind of felt like the end of Volume 4, the reason they did that was just to show the fact that Oscar was going to show up, and that he was going to show up that soon. Because, to be perfectly honest, had I not had that preference and I had just seen the scene, I would have major questions in terms of just kind of like, wait, what the heck? How the heck did he get there? How long has it been? Like, I don't know. For me, having it show up twice made it make a bit more sense in my head of like, okay, so this happened before, this happened after, this is how long it's been, he got here at this time.
Yeah.
It just kind of puts the pieces of the puzzle a little bit more together for me in a way that it seems more cohesive.
You're right. I mean, it does fit really well, and it makes sense with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Crow goes to the bar as Oz would expect. Oz finds him right where he expects to find him.
Yep.
Yeah, but anyway, that scene happens.
Indeed. And then moving on to aren't you a bit too young to drink water? It's hot out.
Right, to the just right, the convenience store in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of, kind of. The guy's just like, wait, no one ever comes out here. But anyway, then you just have this random guy. It's like, you're too young to drink. You look like a regular huntress. And then it goes into the probably one of the more awkward moments, also, but albeit funny, moments of this episode where Yang gets hit on.
Yes. So just to go back to that, I thought that this opening joke of just water, I thought that was really funny.
Oh yeah, me too.
Just because, I don't know, we know that Yang does not have an issue with that, and it seems like a callback to me of her in her trailer where she goes to the bar. Yeah. Where she goes to the bar.
Yeah.
And she's just like, kind of playing it low key this time.
Yeah. For a bit.
Yeah, that for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. Until this guy starts hitting on her.
Yeah, and then
it's like,
in a really like creepy, in an extremely creepy fashion.
Yeah.
That was kind of hard to watch.
Yeah,
for me at least.
This guy's just horrible. He's just like, hey girlie, are you interested? He's like, no, I'm not. Can you stop? He's like, nah, I'm going to keep going because I think this is going to work. It's like, you don't even understand what you're doing wrong. And then you find out real quickly. It's like, and your hair.
Yeah,
grab.
So this creepy guy keeps making advances on Yang, and she keeps being like, not interested.
Yep.
And then, the guy like tries to touch her hair.
Yeah.
Yang like
grabs him,
looks at him. You see that she opens her eyes and that they're red.
Yeah.
And then
boom,
she whacks him. If you pause it,
that right hook,
you can actually see his tooth come out.
You can. You don't even need to pause it. They slow-moed it down for you.
Oh, did they? Oh, okay.
Also, if you pay attention, his smile before has all his teeth, and then later he is distinctly missing it.
Yes. No, I appreciate that.
Yes, that was a nice little addition. But also, a few things about that. One, she just straight out nailed this guy right in the face for just trying to hit on her. So remember how last volume and in her character short and also in the conversation about the opening, I would mention how I was concerned that she was not ready and that she still had anger issues and that she was not prepared. I think this is a pretty good example of showing that she is not where she needs to be.
I mean, it was kind of warranted.
I mean, yeah, it was kind of warranted to like punch the guy. Maybe not that necessarily like.
Maybe not quite that hard, but
let's not try to discuss the physics of that because that made no sense.
Okay, yeah. So moving on to that, Yang punches this man, and he goes whoop 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 whoop. All over the place, bouncing off of the floor and the ceiling was straight out the door. Which, like,
what?
I guess it was. I mean, obviously it was like for comedic effect, but it was just like
it was a bit much.
It seems a little out of place.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too critical, but like that, along with like the 2D art, just made me earlier in the episode made me feel like there were like a bunch of weird things on this episode.
Okay.
But I mean, it was hilarious.
It was. And yeah, I mean, when you kind of look at Yang's face after punching the guy a little bit, I kind of got the impression that maybe she felt not necessarily bad that she did it, but that she thinks she felt like she went overboard. That was a bit too much.
That would be an understandable emotion.
Yeah, and then amazingly, the bartender's completely fine with this. I was shocked by the fact he's just like, okay, thank you. In fact, I'm going to give you this water for free. Thank you for doing this great service. And he's like, she just punched.
I was really not surprised at all because that guy is obviously not like a great patron, and he was probably like creeping people out of the bar.
I guess so.
Or
I don't know.
The convenience store or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. Seems there's a gas station too.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever. All the vehicles that we see in RWBY.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yep. So much so. Anyway.
I guess they're like airships.
Yeah. So. But yeah, and then you see that Yang's left arm is shaking, and then she has to kind of grab it with her robot arm and calm down, which is another indication to me that she's kind of still
definitely
a little bit on kilter due to like her off kilter due to her the training maybe it's kind of sunk in, but she hasn't really gotten full control over her emotions yet, which once again I think that's shown by how much force she used to punch that guy, the fact that she flared her red eyes in general. Considering the guy was just approaching her, albeit in a potentially hostile and certainly not appreciated manner, but I don't know, that felt like pretty overboard and like a bit way too much of an overreaction that just spoke to me that Yang is she's not where she needs to be.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.